The war room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Admiral Zexathyra looked at the big screen floating in the center of the room. The planet Kepler 442b spun slowly on the display, surrounded by red dots that showed where the enemy weapons were placed. 3 years of fighting, and they were no closer to winning than when they started. Around the long metal table sat the best military minds from 12 different worlds. There was General Korth from the rock people of Titan Prime, his stone face showing no emotion. Commander Yelan from the water world of Aquarius tapped her webbed fingers on the table. The bird-like Admiral Screech clicked his beak in frustration. They had all tried their best weapons, their smartest plans, their strongest ships. Nothing worked. The enemy fortress on Kepler 442b was too strong. Its shields could stop anything they threw at it. The weapons around the planet could destroy a moon if they wanted to. Every attack had failed. Every plan had been useless. At the far end of the table sat the newest member of their group. Commander Jake Murphy from Earth looked different from the others. He was tall and thin, with brown hair that was a little messy. His uniform was clean but not perfect like the aliens wore theirs. He had been quiet during the whole meeting, just watching and listening. The other commanders did not trust him yet. Humans were new to the Galactic War. Earth had only joined the fight 6 months ago. What could these newcomers know about space battles that the older races did not? Admiral Zexathyra spoke first. His voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. We have lost 47 ships in the last attack. The Vorthan Empire grows stronger every day we wait. Their fortress cannot be broken. General Korth hit the table with his stone fist. My people have fought for 1,000 years. We know every way to break a wall. This one cannot be broken. Commander Yelan made a sound like water flowing over rocks. My fleet tried to attack from below the planet. The shields go all the way around. There is no weak spot. Admiral Screech flapped his wings once. My fastest ships cannot get close. Their weapons are too quick, too strong. We need more ships, more weapons, more time. We do not have more time, said Admiral Zexathyra. The Vorthan Empire will attack our homeworld soon. We must take this planet now, or we will lose everything. The room became quiet again. Everyone stared at the floating planet on the screen. It looked so small, but it held the key to winning or losing the war. The fortress. On its surface was like a metal mountain, covered in weapons and shields. Admiral Zexathyra turned to look at the human commander. What do you think, Commander Murphy? Your people are known for unusual ideas. Jake Murphy looked up from his small computer pad. He had been making notes and drawings that no one else could understand. His blue eyes were calm, but there was something in them that made the other commanders nervous. Well, Murphy said slowly, I have been looking at your attack plans. They are all very good, very smart, but they all have the same problem. What problem? Asked General Korth. Murphy stood up and walked to the big screen. He pointed at the planet with one finger. You are all trying to attack the fortress, but the fortress is too strong, so maybe we should not attack the fortress at all. Admiral, Screech made a sharp sound with his beak. If we do not attack the fortress, how do we win? Murphy smiled a little. It was not a mean smile, but it made the aliens feel worried. It's probably a bad idea, but what if we do not attack the fortress? What if we move the whole planet instead? The room became so quiet that they could hear the air moving through the vents. Every alien commander stared at the human like he had said something crazy. Move the planet. Commander Yelan's voice was very soft. That is not possible. Actually, Murphy said, still looking at the screen, it might be possible. See, the fortress is built to stop attacks from outside, but it is not built to handle the planet moving. If we could push Kepler 442b out of its normal path around the sun. General, Korth stood up fast, his stone chair making a loud scraping sound. You want to move an entire world? That is madness. Murphy turned around to face them all. Maybe. But think about it. The fortress gets its power from the planet's core. The shields work with the planet's gravity. If the planet starts moving in the wrong direction, toward the asteroid belt maybe, what happens to the fortress? Admiral Zexathyra was very still. His 4 eyes blinked one at a time. The fortress would be destroyed when the planet hits the asteroids. Right, Murphy said. And we would not have to break through their shields or fight their weapons. We would just have to move one planet. You cannot move a planet. Admiral Screech's voice was very high and sharp. It weighs too much. It would take more power than our entire fleet has. Murphy sat back down and picked up his computer pad. Actually, we would not need to push it very hard. Space is big and empty. A small push in the right direction, at the right time, and gravity will do the rest of the work for us. He showed them his screen. It was covered with numbers and lines that looked like a maze. See, if we use the gravity from the 3 big gas planets in this system and time everything just right, we can make Kepler 442b fall toward the asteroid belt, like rolling a ball down a hill. The alien commanders looked at each other. This human was talking about moving worlds like they were toys, but the numbers on his screen looked real. The lines and curves made sense even if the idea was crazy. How long would this take? Asked Admiral Zexathyra. About 6 hours from start to finish, Murphy said. Maybe 8 if we are being extra careful. Commander Yilan made a sound like a small wave breaking. And if you are wrong? If your plan does not work? Murphy looked at her with his calm blue eyes. Then we will have learned something new about physics, and the fortress will still be there for you to attack the old way. He stood up again and looked around the room. Look, I know this sounds crazy, it probably is crazy, but we have been trying to break that fortress for 3 years with no success. Maybe it is time to try something that has never been done before. The room was quiet for a long time. The alien commanders thought about the humans' words. Moving a planet was impossible. Everyone knew that. But humans had already done many impossible things since joining the war. Admiral Zexathyra finally spoke. Show us your plan, Commander Murphy. Show us how you would move a world. The meeting broke up after 2 hours of arguing. Half the alien commanders thought Murphy was crazy. The other half thought he might be crazy but wanted to hear more. Admiral Zexathyra told everyone to go back to their ships and think about it. Murphy walked down the long hallway to the human section of the ship. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Behind him, he could hear the aliens talking in their own languages. Some of the words he recognized. Most of them meant things like impossible and insane. The human quarters were smaller than the alien ones, but they felt more like home. Murphy found his team waiting for him in the meeting room. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at the computer, her red hair tied back in a tight knot. She was the best pilot in the human fleet, and she could do math in her head faster than most computers. Chief Engineer Pete Collins stood by the wall, drinking coffee from a metal cup. He was a big man with strong hands and a beard that was always a little messy. He could fix anything that broke and build things that should not work, but somehow did. Navigation specialist Lisa Martinez was drawing on the whiteboard with colored pens. She had dark hair and quick brown eyes that never missed anything. She could find her way through space better than anyone Murphy had ever met. So, Amy said, without looking up from her screen, how badly did we scare them? Murphy sat down in his chair and rubbed his face with both hands. Pretty badly. General Korth looked like he wanted to throw me out the airlock. Pete laughed and took another drink of coffee. Good. If we are not scaring someone, we are not thinking big enough. Lisa turned around from the board. She had drawn a picture of the solar system with all the planets and their paths around the sun. Did you tell them about the gravity slingshot? I mentioned it, Murphy said. But I think they stopped listening after I said we should move the planet. Amy finally looked up from her computer. Well, the good news is that the math works. I have been running the numbers all morning. It is crazy, but it is possible. She turned her screen so the others could see it. The display showed the solar system like a big clock with all the planets moving in circles around the sun. But in Amy's version, Kepler 442b had a red line showing where it would go if they pushed it. See? Amy said, pointing at the screen. The planet is right here now. If we can give it a push at exactly the right time, when these 3 gas planets are lined up just right, the gravity will pull it toward the asteroid belt. Pete put down his coffee cup. How big of a push are we talking about? Amy smiled. That is the beautiful part. We do not need to push very hard at all. Just enough to change its speed by about 50 meters per second. That is like making a car go from 60 miles per hour to 61 miles per hour. Lisa made a mark on her drawing. But the timing has to be perfect. If we are off by even 1 minute, the planet will go the wrong way. Murphy looked at the numbers on Amy's screen. They were long and complicated, full of letters and symbols that would make most people's heads hurt. But to him, they told a story. They showed how to turn the whole solar system into a giant machine. What about the people on the planet? Murphy asked. The Vorthan soldiers and the civilians? Amy typed some more numbers. The fortress shields will protect them from the worst of it. When the planet hits the asteroid belt, it will crack the surface. But the people inside the fortress should be safe. Pete crossed his arms. Should be safe. That is not the same as will be safe. No, Murphy said quietly. It is not. But if we do nothing, the war will go on for years. Millions more. People will die on both sides. Sometimes you have to take a big risk to save more lives. Lisa added more lines to her drawing. We will need at least 20 ships working together. Each one has to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Amy nodded. And we will need to plant some charges on the planet itself. Not big ones, just enough to help push it at the right moment. Murphy stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the human fleet floating in space. 37 ships, all that Earth could spare for the war. They were smaller than the alien ships, but they were fast and smart. How long do we have to set this up? He asked. Lisa looked at her drawing again. The planets will be in the right position in 4 days. After that, we will have to wait 6 months for another chance. Pete finished his coffee. 4 days to plan something that has never been done before. No pressure. Amy was typing again, making new calculations. Actually, there is one more thing. The fortress has gravity generators that keep the planet's core stable. If we want to move the planet without breaking it apart, we need to turn those off at exactly the right moment. Murphy turned around. Can we do that? Maybe, Amy said. But someone would have to get onto the planet and into the fortress. Passing all those weapons and shields we have been trying to break for 3 years. The room became quiet. They all knew what that meant. It was not just about moving a planet anymore. Someone would have to walk into the most dangerous place in the galaxy and sabotage the enemy's most important machines. Lisa put down her pen. So let me make sure I understand this. We want to use 3 gas giants to push a planet toward an asteroid belt while someone sneaks into an impossible fortress to turn off the machines that keep the planet from exploding. That is about right, Murphy said. Pete started laughing. It was a deep, loud laugh that filled the room. You know what? I like it. It is so crazy that it might actually work. Amy saved her calculations and closed the computer. We should start making a real plan, with times and positions and backup options. Murphy walked back to the table. First, we need to convince the alien commanders that this is not completely insane. But it is completely insane, Lisa said. I know, Murphy said, but it is also our best chance to win this war. He looked at his team. Amy was already opening new files on her computer. Pete was drawing pictures of the charges they would need. Lisa was adding more details to her map of the solar system. All right, Murphy said. Let us figure out how to move a planet. Amy, I need exact positions for all 20 ships. Pete, start thinking about what kind of charges we will need and how to get them onto the planet. Lisa, map out every possible path the planet could take if something goes wrong. They worked through the night, filling the room with papers and drawings and computer screens full of numbers. Outside the window, the stars turned slowly as the ship moved through space. By morning, they had something that looked like a plan. It was still crazy. It was still dangerous. But it was also detailed and careful and just might work. Murphy gathered up all the papers and put them in a folder. Time to go scare some aliens again. As he walked toward the door, Amy called after him. Jake? What if they say no? Murphy stopped and looked back at his team. Then we will have to find a way to do it without them. Murphy walked back into the war room carrying his folder of papers. The alien commanders were already there, looking tired and worried. They had spent the night talking to their home worlds, asking for advice about the crazy human plan. Admiral Zexathyra looked up when Murphy entered. "Commander, we have discussed your idea. Most of my officers think it cannot be done." "Most," Murphy said, sitting down. "But not all." General Korth shifted in his stone chair. "The rock people of Titan Prime have moved asteroids before for mining, but never anything as big as a planet." Commander Yilan made her water-flowing sound. "My scientists ran your numbers through our computers. The computer said the plan was mathematically impossible." Murphy opened his folder and spread papers across the table. "Did they say it was impossible, or did they say the chance of success was very small?" "They said..." Yilan paused. "They said the chance was so small that it was not worth calculating." "That is not the same as impossible," Murphy said. He pulled out Amy's main calculation sheet. "My team worked all night. We have exact positions for every ship, exact timing for every movement, and backup plans for when things go wrong." Admiral Screech clicked his beak. "When things go wrong? Not if?" Murphy smiled. "In my experience, something always goes wrong. The trick is planning for it." He stood up and walked to the big screen. With a few button presses, he made it show Amy's version of the solar system. The planets moved in their circles, and red lines showed where the human ships would be positioned. "Here is how it works," Murphy said. "We divide our fleet into 7 groups. Each group has a job to do." He pointed to different parts of the screen as he talked. "Group 1 goes to the first gas planet. They use their engines to give it a tiny push, just enough to change its gravity field by a small amount." General Korth leaned forward. "You want to push a gas planet?" "Just a little," Murphy said. "Like nudging a ball that is already rolling. Group 2 does the same thing with the second gas planet. Group 3 handles the third one. Groups 4, 5, and 6 position themselves around Kepler 442b and wait for the right moment to push." Admiral Zexathyra studied the screen. "And Group 7? Murphy's expression became serious. "Group 7 has the hardest job. They have to get onto the planet and turn off the gravity generators inside the fortress." The room became very quiet. Everyone knew that getting onto Kepler 442b alive was almost impossible. Getting into the fortress was completely impossible. "Who would lead Group 7? Asked Commander Yilan. "I would," Murphy said simply. Admiral Screech made a sharp sound. "You would go yourself into the fortress?" "Someone has to, and it was my idea, so it should be my risk." Murphy changed the screen to show a detailed picture of the fortress. It looked like a metal mountain covered in weapons. "My team has been studying this place for months. We think we found a way in." He pointed to a small spot on the fortress wall. "There is a maintenance tunnel here. It is too small for most ships, but human fighters are smaller than yours. We can get 3 or 4 people inside if we time it right." General Korth hit the table again. "The weapons around that tunnel will destroy you before you get close." "Not if the other groups are doing their jobs," Murphy said. "When we start pushing the gas planets, it will change the gravity in the whole system. The fortress weapons are designed to track targets in normal gravity. When gravity starts changing, they will need time to adjust." He showed them more papers, with timing charts and position maps. "We have a window of about 15 minutes when the weapons will be confused. That is when Group 7 goes in." Admiral Zexathyra looked at all the papers spread across the table. "This plan requires perfect timing from 7 different groups, spread across an entire solar system. If any one group is late or early by even a few minutes, the whole thing fails," Murphy finished. "I know. That is why we need your help." The alien commanders looked at each other. They had fought together for years, but they had never tried anything this complicated. "My ships are fast," said Admiral Screech, "but your plan requires them to be in exact positions at exact times. What if the enemy tries to stop us?" Murphy pulled out another paper. "That is the beautiful part. The Vorthan Empire does not know what we are planning. They think we are just moving our ships around randomly. By the time they realize what we are doing, it will be too late to stop us. Pete Collins entered the room carrying a metal case. Murphy had asked him to bring the special charges they would need. These are the devices that will help push the gas planets, Pete said, opening the case. Inside were small silver boxes covered in blinking lights. Each one is about as powerful as a small nuclear bomb, but they push instead of explode. Commander Yilan looked at the devices with her large water eyes. You want to use nuclear weapons on gas planets? Not nuclear weapons, Pete said. Gravity bombs. They create a small gravity field that pushes things away instead of pulling them in. Admiral Zex Thyra picked up one of the silver boxes. It was smaller than his four-fingered hand. This tiny thing can push a planet? Not by itself, Pete said. But if you put 12 of them in the right places and set them off at the right time, they can change how the planet moves through space. Murphy looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked worried. Some looked confused. Some looked excited. I know this sounds crazy, he said. I know it has never been done before, but we have been fighting this war for 3 years with no progress. Maybe it is time to try something completely new. Admiral Screech spread his wings. What do you need from us? Murphy smiled. I need your fastest ships for groups 1, 2, and 3. They have to get to the gas planets and plant these charges without being seen. He pointed to Admiral Zexathyra. I need your strongest ships for groups 4, 5, and 6. When the time comes, they have to push Kepler 482b at exactly the right moment. Finally, he looked at General Korth. And I need your toughest ships to keep the Vorthan fleet busy while we work. They cannot be allowed to interfere. General Korth stood up slowly. His stone body made grinding sounds. You want my people to fight the entire enemy fleet while you play with planets? I want your people to do what they do best, Murphy said. Fight hard and keep the enemy's attention on you instead of on us. The room was quiet for a long time. The alien commanders thought about the humans' words. The plan was crazy and dangerous and had never been tried before, but it was also clever and detailed and just might work. Admiral Zex Thyra finally spoke. How long do we have to prepare? Murphy looked at his watch. 3 days and 16 hours until the planets are in the right position. 3 days to coordinate 7 fleets across an entire solar system, Commander Yilan said softly. 3 days to do something that will be remembered forever, Murphy said. Admiral Screech clicked his beak once. If this works, they will tell stories about it for 1,000 years. Murphy gathered up his papers. And if it does not work, there might not be anyone left to tell stories. General Korth laughed, a sound like rocks falling. I like those odds. When do we start? 3 days later, Murphy stood on the bridge of his ship watching 7 different groups of vessels move into position across the solar system. On the main screen, he could see tiny dots representing hundreds of ships from 12 different worlds, all following the crazy plan that had started in his head. Amy Foster sat at the navigation station, her fingers dancing across the controls as she tracked every ship's position. Group 1 is in position around the first gas planet. Group 2 reports ready at the second planet. Group 3 is almost at the third planet. Pete Collins was in the engine room, monitoring the gravity bombs they had planted throughout the system. His voice came through the communication system. Calm and steady. All charges are armed and ready, timing sequences locked in. Lisa Martinez worked at the sensor station, watching for any sign that the Vorthan Empire had figured out what they were doing. Enemy fleet is still in normal defensive positions around Kepler 442b. They do not seem to know what is happening. Murphy looked at his watch. 2 hours until the planets lined up perfectly. 2 hours until they tried to do something that had never been done before. Group 7 report, Murphy said into his microphone. The voice that answered belonged to Sergeant Rick Davis, who was leading the team that would infiltrate the fortress. We are hidden behind the small moon, waiting for your signal. The fortress weapons have not detected us yet. Murphy walked to the big window that looked out into space. Somewhere out there, Kepler 442b spun slowly in its orbit, protected by shields and weapons that had stopped every attack for 3 years. In less than 2 hours, they would try to throw the entire planet into space. Admiral Zexthyra's voice came through the communication system. Commander Murphy, my sensors show unusual gravity readings throughout the system. Are your charges affecting the planets already? Murphy smiled. Just small changes so far. The real show starts in 90 minutes. On the screen, Amy's display showed the solar system like a giant clock. All the planets moved in their normal circles, but red lines showed where they would be when the plan began. Green dots marked where each group of ships waited. Group 4, 5, and 6 are in position around Kepler 442b, Amy reported. The enemy still thinks we are just moving ships around for no reason. Murphy picked up his microphone again. All groups, this is Murphy. Remember, we only get one chance at this. If we miss our timing, we will have to wait 6 months for the planets to line up again. General Korth's rough voice answered first. My ships are ready to keep the enemy busy. They will not interfere with your plan. Admiral Screech's high voice came next. My fastest ships are ready to plant the charges and get away quickly. Commander Yelan made her water sound. My people will push the planet when you give the signal. Murphy looked at his watch again. 60 minutes to go. On Kepler 442b, the Vorthon, Commander General Tekkamar watched his own screens in confusion. The enemy fleets had spread out across the entire solar system instead of attacking his fortress. Some ships were near the gas planets. Others were moving in strange patterns that made no sense. What are they doing? Asked his second-in-command. General Tekkamar studied the display. I do not know. It looks like they are running away, but they are not leaving the system. Should we attack them while they are scattered? No, Tekkamar said slowly. This might be a trap. Keep our weapons ready and wait to see what they do. Back on Murphy's ship, the countdown continued. Amy called out position reports every few minutes. Pete monitored the charges. Lisa watched for enemy movements. 30 minutes, Murphy announced to all groups. He could feel his heart beating faster. In 30 minutes, they would find out if humans could really move planets or if they were all about to die trying. Group 7, begin your approach, Murphy said. On his screen, he watched as 4 small human fighters left their hiding place behind the moon and started flying toward the fortress. They moved slowly and carefully, trying not to attract attention. Rick. Davis's voice was calm but tense. We see the maintenance tunnel. Fortress weapons are tracking us but not firing yet. 15 minutes, Amy called out. Murphy gripped the rail in front of him. This was the hardest part. Waiting and watching while other people risked their lives following his plan. Group 1. Plant your charges now, Murphy ordered. On the screen, tiny flashes of light appeared around the first gas planet as Admiral Screech's ships placed Pete's gravity bombs in exactly the right positions. Charges planted, came the report. Ships pulling back to safe distance. Group 2, your turn. More flashes of light around the second gas planet. Group 3, go. The third set of charges went into place. Murphy looked at his watch. 5 minutes, until the planets lined up perfectly. Group 7, status report. Rick Davis's voice was strained now. We are inside the tunnel. Fortress weapons are starting to move, but they seem confused. Gravity must be changing already. That is the first effects of the charges, Pete's voice said through the speakers. When I activate them fully, gravity will really start dancing. Murphy took a deep breath. All groups prepare for final sequence. Pete, start the countdown. Pete's voice was steady and calm. Activating charges in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Charges active. On the screen, the 3 gas planets suddenly developed small bright spots where the gravity bombs had exploded. The explosions did not destroy anything, but they pushed on the planets with invisible force. Amy watched her instruments carefully. Gravity fields are changing throughout the system. The gas planets are starting to move. Murphy felt his stomach twist as their own ship rocked slightly from the changing gravity. Group 7, the fortress weapons should be confused now. Move fast. We are at the gravity generators, Rick reported. Beginning shutdown sequence. On the main screen, Kepler 442b looked the same as always, but Murphy knew that invisible forces were starting to pull at it from 3 different directions. Groups 4, 5, and 6, Murphy said into his microphone. Prepare to push the planet. Wait for my signal. Lisa suddenly looked up from her sensors. The Vorthan fleet is moving. I think they figured out something is wrong. Murphy saw enemy ships starting to leave their positions around the planet, but it was too late for them to stop what was already happening. Gravity generators are offline, Rick reported. The planet's core is no longer stabilized. Amy's voice was excited. I am reading orbital changes. Kepler 442b is starting to move. Murphy watched the screen as the planet's path around the sun began to change, just slightly at first. The red line that showed where it should go grew brighter. Now, Murphy said, groups 4, 5, and 6 push the planet, push it hard. The push worked better than anyone expected. As groups 4, 5, and 6 fired their engines at exactly the right moment, Kepler 442b shuddered and began moving faster in its orbit around the sun. The gravity from the 3 gas planets, now changed by Pete's bombs, pulled the planet in a new direction. Murphy watched his screen as the red line showing the planet's path grew brighter and longer. The planet was no longer following its normal circle around the sun. Instead, it was heading toward the asteroid belt exactly as Amy had calculated. It is working, Amy said, her voice full of amazement. The planet is actually moving. On Kepler 442b, General Thekmar felt his fortress shake as the gravity generators shut down. His officers ran around trying to understand what was happening to their world. Sir, his second-in-command shouted, our planet is leaving its orbit. We are moving toward the asteroid belt. General Thekmar stared at his displays in shock. The fortress weapons were designed to shoot at enemy ships, not to stop an entire planet from moving through space. How is this possible? The enemy ships are not attacking us, another officer reported. They are attacking the gas planets and our planet's gravity. For the first time in his military career, General Thekmar did not know what to do. How do you fight an enemy that turns your own world into a weapon against you? Back on Murphy's ship, Rick Davis's voice came through the speakers. We are out of the fortress and back to our ships. The gravity generators are completely offline. The planet is on its own now. Murphy felt relief wash over him. His people were safe. Now they just had to wait and see if physics would do the rest of the work. How long until the planet reaches the asteroid belt? Murphy asked. Amy checked her calculations again. At current speed, about 4 hours. But the gravity from the asteroids will start affecting the planet in about 2 hours. Lisa looked up from her sensors. The Vorthan fleet is trying to follow their planet, but they are having trouble with the changing gravity. Some of their ships are spinning out of control. Murphy picked up his microphone. All groups, excellent work. Phase 1 is complete. Now we wait for physics to finish the job. Admiral Zexathira's voice came through the speakers, sounding amazed. Commander Murphy, I have been watching wars for 50 years. I have never seen anything like this. General Korth's rough laugh filled the communication channel. The humans just threw a planet like it was a rock. This will be remembered forever. 2 hours later, Kepler 442b was deep in the asteroid belt. The planet's gravity was pulling asteroids toward it, while the asteroid's gravity was pulling the planet in different directions. The result was exactly what Amy had predicted. Murphy watched the screen as the planet began to crack. Not enough to hurt the people inside the fortress, but enough to show that the world was coming apart. The fortress shields are holding, Lisa reported. The people inside should be safe, but their world is definitely breaking. Admiral Screech's voice was excited. The planet just hit a large asteroid. The impact cracked the surface in 12 places. Murphy felt sad and relieved at the same time. Sad because they had just destroyed a world, even if it was an enemy world. Relieved because the war might finally be over. His communication system suddenly came alive with a new voice. It was General Thekmar speaking directly to the human fleet. Commander Murphy of the Human Forces, the Vorthan general said. I wish to speak with you. Murphy was surprised. The enemy commander knew his name. This is Murphy. Go ahead, General. You have done something that should be impossible, Thekmar said. You have moved our world and broken it without destroying our people. How did you do this? Murphy thought for a moment before answering. We used physics, General, gravity and timing and a lot of luck. There was a long pause before Thekmar spoke again. My people have been fighting wars for 2,000 years. We have seen every weapon, every strategy, every trick, but we have never seen anyone use the laws of nature as a weapon. Is this a surrender? Murphy asked. Another pause. Yes, Commander. The Vorthan Empire surrenders. We cannot fight an enemy that can throw planets. The communication channels exploded with cheers from all the Allied fleets. After 3 years of fighting, the war was finally over. But Murphy did not feel like celebrating. He was thinking about what they had just done and what it meant for the future. Admiral Zexithira called a meeting on his flagship 2 days later. All the commanders who had fought in the battle were there, along with representatives from their homeworlds. The big war room was crowded with beings from 12 different species. We are here to discuss what happened at Kepler 442b, Admiral Zexithira said, and what it means for the future of the Galactic Navy. General Korth spoke first. The humans have shown us a new kind of warfare, not just fighting with ships and weapons, but fighting with the universe itself. Commander Yelan made her water sound. My world's scientists have been studying the battle records. They say what the humans did should have been impossible. Admiral Screech clicked his beak. But it worked. That is what matters. Admiral Zexithira looked at Murphy. Commander, my government wants to know if humans have other plans like this one. Murphy smiled. We always have ideas. Most of them are probably bad ideas, but sometimes bad ideas work. That is what worries us, Zexithira said. You and your team are already working on something new, are you not? Murphy's smile got bigger. Well, it is probably a bad idea, but we were thinking about how to turn a black hole into a transportation system. The room became very quiet. Several alien commanders made choking sounds. A transportation system? General Korth asked slowly. Sure, Murphy said. If you can control the gravity around a black hole, you could use it to move ships across the galaxy instantly, like a tunnel through space. Amy Foster, who was sitting next to Murphy, nodded. The math is actually pretty simple. The hard part is not getting crushed by the gravity. Pete Collins grinned. We think we can build gravity shields to protect the ships. It would be like riding inside a soap bubble through a hurricane. Admiral Zexithira held up one of his 4 hands. Stop, please, do not tell us any more about this plan. Murphy looked confused. Why not? Because, Zexithira said, my government has decided to create a new rule for the Galactic Navy. Any plan proposed by humans that begins with the words, it is probably a bad idea, but must be immediately reported to the highest levels of command. Even if the plan sounds completely crazy? Murphy asked. Especially if it sounds completely crazy, Zexithira said. We have learned that human craziness and human genius are often the same thing. General Korth laughed his rock-falling laugh. The humans do not think outside the box. They redesign the universe so the box becomes meaningless. Admiral Screech spread his wings. They do not solve problems. They change what the problem is. Murphy looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. Some looked worried. Some looked excited. All of them looked like they were trying to decide if humans were the best allies they had ever had or the most dangerous. You know, Murphy said quietly, we are just getting started. Wait until you see what we come up with next. The meeting ended with the creation of the Murphy Doctrine, a new set of rules for dealing with human military plans. The main rule was simple. If it sounds impossible, let the humans try it anyway. 3 months later, Murphy and his team were back in their meeting room, working on the black hole transportation project. The whiteboard was covered with drawings and equations. The computer screens showed models of gravity fields and space tunnels. Amy looked up from her calculations. I think we figured out how to keep the ships from being crushed. Pete finished his coffee and grinned. And I designed the gravity shields. They should work perfectly. Lisa added another line to her map of local black holes. I found 3 black holes that would be perfect for testing. Murphy leaned back in his chair and looked at his team. So we are really going to try this? It is probably a bad idea, Amy said with a smile. But it might work, Pete added. And if it works, Lisa said, we could travel to any part of the galaxy in minutes instead of years. Murphy stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked the same as always, but he knew that somewhere out there, alien commanders were probably having nightmares about what the humans might try next. All right, he said. Let us figure out how to turn a black hole into a highway. The story of the Battle of Kepler 442b became legend throughout the galaxy. But for Murphy and his team, it was just the beginning. After all, the universe was full of problems that needed solving, and humans were very good at finding new ways to solve them.